Thank the SPS for its answer. Just two supplementary questions. Firstly, I think would the SPS not acknowledge that there are risks in the voluntary notification system vis-a-vis a mandatory one, in the sense that if a merger or an acquisition is found to be illegal after the fact, there could be costs borne by employees, customers, and even the wider society for that merger or acquisition to be unwound or to be mitigated after the fact. For example, employees could be let go, brands could be dissolved or removed, products could be withdrawn, and it may be very difficult, if not impossible, to make restitution for all those events after the fact. So, and I think there have been some recent, there was a recent case where I think some of these factors came into play. It's not my intention to talk about a specific case. I know that it's ongoing, but I'm really just querying the general principle. So, I mean, how do we manage those downside costs and risks? Particularly in light of the fact that while there are some jurisdictions that have voluntary notification, the US and the EU, I believe, have mandatory notification beyond certain thresholds. In the US, there's the Hart-Scott-Rodino pre-merger notification requirement. Above is a threshold of about 76 million, which is reviewed regularly and inflation adjusted.
Can we pose a question, please?
Yeah. So, and in the EU, there's a similar one. The second question that I have is in regards to compliance costs. So I do recognize what the SPS said, that compliance costs, we don't want to over-egg the pudding and increase compliance costs unnecessarily, but wouldn't that really go to the question of thresholds? You can set maybe a dollar threshold and a market share change threshold high enough so that the vast majority of M&A would not be affected. So really the question of compliance costs, could it not be addressed through a mandatory notification regime which has sufficiently high thresholds? Thank you.
I thank the member for his two supplementary questions, which actually speak to a single question that underpins what he raised. He's basically asking, will a mandatory notification system be able to address situations where the prospective merging parties, for whatever reason, do not make known the merger in advance? Now, we've mentioned that Singapore's voluntary notification regime is similar to that in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And indeed, there are other jurisdictions that have a mandatory merger notification regime, such as the EU, Vietnam, Philippines, and the United States, which includes the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act, which the member has raised. But even in these jurisdictions where there is mandatory notification, the same situation can arise where companies that are determined to implement an anti-competitive merger still choose to go ahead without notifying the competition authorities. So in summary, it is important, generally speaking, that any competition commission has the ability to address unnotified mergers that are found or determined to be anti-competitive. And our regime, which follows elements from other jurisdictions, addresses that.